Welcome to the Canadian Beef Cattle Podcast, presented by the Beef Cattle Research Council. The most popular content from beefresearch.ca, available on the go. Before we get into this week's episode, a quick message from the BCRC.
Bovine respiratory disease, BRD, is one of the most costly cattle health challenges, leading to death loss, treatment expenses, and reduced performance. The BRD Vaccination Cost-Benefit Calculator helps producers put real numbers to those costs by comparing vaccinated versus unvaccinated calves. Simply enter your own operations details to see the potential value of BRD vaccination and whether paying a premium for vaccinated calves makes sense. A link to this calculator can be found in the show notes.
Hello, I'm Kristen Thompson with the Beef Cattle Research Council. Nitrates can become a serious problem in beef cattle diets when consumed at high levels. Knowing how nitrates work, why they are a risk, and how to manage them can help protect both your cattle and your bottom line. So why are high nitrates a problem? When nitrates are consumed at low concentrations, the microbes in the rumen can effectively convert it to nitrite and then further to ammonia to produce proteins. However, if nitrates are consumed at high concentrations, this metabolic process becomes overwhelmed, leading to a buildup of nitrite. This excess spills over into the bloodstream and binds to hemoglobin, reducing the blood's oxygen carrying capacity. The result is similar to carbon monoxide poisoning and is a medical emergency as cattle can die quickly. If you suspect your cattle have nitrate poisoning, contact your veterinarian immediately. But when are nitrates the biggest risk? Nitrates pose the biggest risk to cattle when plants have accumulated levels above what they can convert to plant protein, and this is usually during stressful growing conditions such as heat stress, drought, frost, and hail damage. Elevated nitrate levels can also occur with excess nitrogen fertilization. These stressful growing conditions result in an inhibition of the plant's ability to process nitrates effectively, resulting in their buildup. Annual crops such as canola, wheat, oats, barley, sorghum, Sudan grass, millet, and rye, along with common weeds like kochia, thistle, pigweed, lamb's quarters, dock, and sweet clover, are more susceptible to nitrate accumulation. Harvesting annual crops as dry baled forage or green feed can be of particular risk if the plants have nitrates, as the drying process will not reduce the nitrate levels. Grazing stubble fields of nitrate-accumulating plants, such as canola or corn, can also pose a danger. There is a much smaller risk of nitrate poisoning from perennial forages. Alfalfa, for example, stores nitrogen in the roots and only moves it to the rest of the plant when it is needed. Symptoms of nitrate poisoning include a reduced feed intake, weakness or reluctance to move, staggering, muscle tremors or convulsions, abortions, brown or muddy-colored gums, respiratory distress, the animals may collapse, and then death. To effectively manage nitrates in beef cattle diets, a feed test is needed. Nitrate levels can only be determined through laboratory analysis. Any feed suspected of having elevated nitrates should be tested. However, it is important to remember that a feed test result is only reliable if a good sample was submitted. So follow recommended procedures for collecting feed samples, and a link to recommended procedures can be found in the show notes. Once you've sent your sample away and gotten the results back, how do you interpret those results? Different labs will report nitrates in different ways, such as on a percent dry matter basis, parts per million of nitrate, or parts per million of nitrite. Some labs offer a screening test, so this will detect the presence or absence of nitrates, while others can actually quantify the amount of nitrate in the feed. It's important to check with the lab for which test they are using. And it is recommended to work closely with your nutritionist to interpret the nitrate test results and to balance your rations safely. The recommended safe level of nitrate consumption by cattle is less than 0.5% on a dry matter basis. Now, this is the level in the total diet, so this is feed and water combined. For a table that provides guidelines for interpreting nitrate levels on your feed test result, click the link in the show notes. Here are some management tips for dealing with high nitrate feeds. Tip number 1. Test all suspect feeds prior to feeding to determine the nitrate level. This is the only way that you're going to be able to balance those rations safely. Tip number 2, don't forget about water. Nitrates can build up in water sources and should be tested prior to livestock consumption. Visit the BCRC's Water Systems for Beef Cattle webpage for more information on water quality and testing. A link can be found in the show notes. Tip number 3. Avoid feeding nitrate-contaminated feed to young, hungry, pregnant, or lactating animals, as these groups are much more susceptible to nitrate poisoning. Tip number 4. Blend off the high nitrate feeds. Mix with low nitrate feeds to reduce the risk of poisoning. If mixing is not an option, put out the low nitrate feed at the beginning of each feeding and follow up with the higher nitrate feed to ensure that each animal has consumed the low nitrate feed first. Tip number 5. Introduce high nitrate feeds gradually to allow the rumen time to adapt to moderate nitrate levels over time. However, it's important to remember that cattle can lose tolerance to moderate nitrate feeds very quickly, so do not feed intermittently. Tip number 6. You may need to make harvest adjustments prior to cutting, so consider increasing the cutting height at harvest to avoid the nitrate-rich stems and reduce the potential for high nitrates in the harvested feed. Tip number 7. If forages have experienced a stressful growing conditions, such as frost or hail damage, wait 10 to 14 days to graze those forages to allow nitrates to dissipate. However, if those plants have experienced another stressful event, delay that timing further. And tip number 8, provide adequate energy when feeding high nitrate feeds. Feeding a high energy supplement, such as grain, can help the rumen to metabolize nitrates into protein much more effectively. Proper management and feed testing are required for high nitrate feeds to be utilized safely. The key is to know your numbers before the feed hits the bunk.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. You can find all relevant links and information at beefresearch.ca or in the show notes. The Beef Cattle Research Council is funded by the Canadian Beef Cattle Checkoff and strives for excellence in the production of Canadian beef, cattle, and forage through research, innovation, and extension. Tune in every Tuesday as the Canadian Beef Cattle Podcast delivers straightforward insights, expert information, and a wealth of practical knowledge for Canadian beef producers. Subscribe now.